All right. Well, thank you so much for your patience and your endurance. And now we'll start our program. Welcome, welcome. If for the benefit of any new members to our community, my name is Dick Barry. I'm an old face around here in more ways than one. I have been a resident for 14 years, and I have served as the board secretary for the last 8.5 years. And this gentleman to my left, very young-looking gentleman, is the chairperson of the board of directors, which a position that he has occupied for the last 1.5 years. And he, along with me, we have worked together for the last 8.5 years, and I'm delighted to present him to you. In preparation for this meeting, I asked a group of residents what they might be interested in learning about Chris, and they were readily available with questions that I categorized first in about Chris as a person, and secondly, Chris within his role as board of a chair of the board. And then we certainly would like to leave a room for questions that might come from you as members of the audience. So we'll get started right away. And you wouldn't believe this, but after almost 9 years of working together, I had to ask him how he really pronounced his last name, which is spelled rather challengingly, and I didn't realize it's of French origin. Oh, all right. Well, my high school French was not very good. How do you pronounce it for the benefit of our audience?
Well, here in America, it'd be Drouin, but Drouin is like Smith in Canada. Robert Drouin came over and was one of the founders of Quebec City and Montreal. So my family's been here since before Canada was Canada and the U.S. was the U.S. Very, very long time.
Well, yeah, you must take particular interest in this new discussion of Canada and the United States. That's for sure. Can you give us a little of your family history, which you've just started? Where did you grow up? Your brothers and sisters? Where did you go to school?
Absolutely. So I grew up in Connecticut. My family's all blue blood New Englanders. I got the French side coming down, and then the English side, the Perrys. We're also here like right after the Mayflower. So we've been here for quite a long time. And my wife is from the Piedmont area in Virginia, so South Central Virginia. Her family also is here from a very long time, and we do a lot of genealogy work. And apparently of the 10 major sea captains, one was one of my, 15 levels back great-grandfathers, and another one was hers. And one interesting fact is, I won't say which side of the family this one came from, but somebody was negotiating with, you might have heard of Pocahontas. So with 200 warriors and leaders of those tribes got together, and one of our ancestors was negotiating with them and basically poisoned 200 of them to help the British with the negotiations. So it's a rather, we got an interesting history there. But I grew up in Connecticut. I went to Holy Cross High School in Waterbury, Connecticut. The town I grew up in was Thomaston, and before that, Southington. So just outside of Litchfield, basically. So Litchfield Hills. I'm the oldest of four. My next in line brother is a doc at Charlotte Hungerford Hospital in Torrington, Connecticut. And my sister passed when she was much younger. And then along came my youngest brother, Danny, who if he messes up in Albany will blow up because he runs what used to be GE Plastic up there, which is now called Momentive. So yeah, FEMA's at his place all the time. The Department of Homeland Security, if it still exists. Very concerned about that. And I came here, I had a guidance counselor who used to work in New York City at one of our sister high schools. And he said, you should check out New Paltz. I think it might have what you like for college. So I came here and did my undergrad and grad. I started with psych, pre-med, and jazz, because you can do all that at New Paltz, and finished up with the psychology. So trained therapist, experimental methodology, all that fun stuff. Is that your question?
Well, can you tell us how you eventually came into your current business and what attracted you to it?
Yeah, I was filling in for a maternity leave in the Office of Admissions because I used to work there as an undergrad and grad student at New Paltz. That turned into 4 years, and I just didn't go back to academia after that. But I worked in admissions, academic advising, taught in the psych department, and a lot of problems in couples is money. And when I worked with students, some of them had trouble coming back to finish their degrees because of money. So kind of what I do now is where your family dynamics, your decision making, life coaching comes together with money and big family decisions. So I really always enjoyed research and helping people. And basically financial planning combines all of that, being creative to figure out how to help somebody maximize the return on their lives and get their assets, their money, their wealth, career coaching to get them where they want to go for themselves and their family. So I've been doing this 23 years now. I've been doing financial planning, investment management. So I really enjoy it. I do it for free. I love it, helping people. Also do a lot of work with business owners. So I'm a certified exit planning advisor. So a lot of our clients are family businesses or closely held businesses. So we're also helping them personal financial planning, getting their assets together. We do a lot of college coaching also, because obviously helping our kids and grandkids go to college is incredibly important. And of course, taking that business and making sure it can go to the next generation, whether it's management, the children, or is sold in a way that continues so the staff can keep their jobs, and the owners who probably mortgage their lives, most of their lives, to keep the business running, can actually get wealth back out of the business so they can retire or move to the next chapter in their lives.
Well, your interest and expertise in finance is certainly appropriate at this time of Woodland Pond's development. I know you have children, Chris. What are their ages?
So my older one, Jennifer, she's 17. My wife homeschooled her. She's graduating at 17 this May from Ulster Community College. Then she's going to go off to semester at sea in the fall, which will be pretty exciting. She'll start in Amsterdam and finish up in Bangkok. And then she'll go off wherever she wants to go. And my younger one, Ella, is 15. She's also at Ulster Community College. She has a few more credits to go, and she'll get her high school. Once you have 24 college credits, New York State gives you your high school degree. So she'll be graduating at 17 from college, associates also. And they're both into psychology. And my younger one is really an amazing potter. So she wants to major in ceramics and psychology and become a therapist. That's her goal. And they both joke about taking over my business.
And I guess the final question would be, do you have any hobbies, sports that you enjoy, any exercise program that you follow regularly, or special recreational pursuits?
All I do is work and help at Woodland Pond. That's it. So I'm a drummer. I try to get out at least 40 days a year snowboarding, especially going in the glades and the trees, mountain bike, backpacking. For working out, I strive to hit the gym 4 days a week at 5:30 before coming into work. Yoga is a big thing that helps me with a little more mental stability, if that's possible. Those are kind of the main things I do.
I'm asking this question because I was recently asked this question. How much money are you paid for being a member of the board?
I would, none. If anything, it costs because we're taking time, out of working to come. But I very much enjoy volunteering on this board, and it's a privilege. This is the most fun board I've been on because we're not caught up picking the color of the napkins. There's no agendas. We're just here to volunteer and to work and to provide hopefully what's our prudent and reasonable judgment for the organization's benefit.
Why did you join the board 9 years ago?
I was asked to by two good friends, John Klassen and Sorry. Well, John Klassen and somebody's name who will come back to me in a second, who used to work with us in New Paltz, they asked me to join. And after I joined, they promptly left because I was replacing them, one of them, Alan Danevsky. I joined because I was asked. And I had just kind of taken a year. Was I still on the board? I stepped back from, I was 18 years on the board for the Regional Chamber of Commerce. I was vice chair, acting as chair for probably 8 years. So I definitely had enough and I needed to step back from that so other people could step forward. And then this opportunity presented itself.
Could you explain to the audience how you became the board chair?
Well, I got a call from Nadine, the previous chair,
Right.
and a couple other board members and Michelle, and I thought I was in trouble. And then they asked me to be the chair. I mean, they just said basically because whenever there was a crisis or anything that was like sensitive, I was always somebody who stepped forward and took care of it. We have an incredibly talented board and have always had a lot of depth on the bench. I think basically it's just because I can facilitate and can help make decisions quickly when needed and slow things down when it's not needed.
How long is your term and how many terms can you serve?
Terms are 3 years. You can do 3 terms. So right now I'm technically at the end of mine. I think it's 2.5 years as chair now. I feel turnover is very important for boards to bring new voices in. So right now we have a decision to make. I recommended the bylaws be amended so that a past president or chair of the board could stay on for 1 more year because I had seen on this board, every chair would finish their term and be gone. And I've always had some kind of progression in any other organization I was in where the past chair could be around to assist. I don't know if I'm going to stay on as a board member for 1 more year or just, I'll be granted,
Emeritus.
I'll be granted emeritus status so I can still participate but not vote. And then after being off the board for a year, one can come back on. And many of the clock resets and many of our board members were on the board before, served their sentence, were paroled, and then came back on because they either, recidivism is high with criminals or they just, can't get enough of helping here.
Could you enumerate some of the specific duties and responsibilities of the chair?
I feel the chair should not have any specific responsibilities so they can be flexible to deal with whatever comes up. That being said, the chair and vice chair would always be a member of every committee. I tend to participate in all the committee meetings, but just try to hang back. This way there's good communication between. So if I can be in all the different committee meetings, I can see what's going on and where overlap might be. And at this point, I have served on every committee at some point. So that also helps. But the main role is to be there to support the committees, facilitate board growth, development. It's just there basically to help. And I feel to make sure that every constituent is heard and all voices are heard and everyone's listened to. So to be an ear and a voice to make sure everything's going through for both the staff and our community and our residents and all of our stakeholders.
Would you briefly explain the interaction between the committees of the board and the full board?
Oh, sure. We charge our committees, they're working committees, so they do the work, they do the research. For many decisions, they're going to make a recommendation, explain it to the board with their motion, and we'll go along with what they said because if these are people who've been studying that issue. If it's something that requires full board debate, the committees will create the presentations, create an educational experience so they can lead us through what we need to decide upon so we can be an educated voter when that full issue comes to the board. So it kind of depends on what the issue is. Some committees are more task groups that kind of come and go as things are needed. Other ones are continually and ongoing, like finance, governance, of
governance.
course, obviously the expansion committee, a huge amount of work, so yeah, it's a lot of work.
Okay, now I'd like you to brag a little. I'd like you to mention what you feel are some attributes that help to make you effective in your current role as board chair. And I'll confirm or deny if he's telling the truth.
I think the only strength I have, is just trusting the process. When you have good people together that are honest and care about a good outcome, not a specific outcome, but a good one on a board. If we all work together, explore the issues, seek outside expertise when needed, when we don't have it, through good conversations and asking questions and always asking, what are we not asking? What are we missing? What do we think we know, but we don't really know? The right solutions will bubble up when you have a bunch of good people together. And generally, we might debate a little bit of direction, but because we all work so much together on the board and with the staff who are superb here, the right decisions tend to bubble up to the surface. But what tends to be a challenge is what's the best decision? Are we going to favor Woodland Pond today, what it needs today, right now, or what it needs in 6 months, or what it needs in 6 years, or 12 years, or 20 years? So sometimes we're debating what are we going to favor, one over the other. It isn't what's right or wrong. It's just more where will our emphasis be. And I mean, I know everybody in this community's been involved in lots of things, so I think you understand that. There's many paths to a good outcome, and we're just seeking that good outcome together. I think I'm just pretty good at facilitating the body language, the room, making sure people are getting what they need, making sure people are heard, giving space for people to think and ask questions. Because I just do that every day with couples and businesses.
I'm not disputing any of those qualities that he mentioned. Here's an area that is I'm often asked about, and one that seems to be very consistently in the minds of residents in terms of seeking clarification. What do you distinguish between Michelle's responsibilities as the president and CEO of Woodland Pond and those of the board?
The board's one responsibility is the oversight of the executive, which is Michelle. And so Michelle's in charge of all operations, all staff decisions, and we're just in charge of overseeing her. I mean, that's as simple as it gets for board oversight. The minute I've been on a lot of boards, I'm sure many of you have, the minute the board gets into operations, you now have a highly dysfunctional organization with a lot of problems. And thankfully, this board gets that and really adheres to that. And a common comment that I've made is, Michelle's going to report on this. She's sharing this with us out of courtesy and mutual respect, but this is her area of oversight. Okay, so because we're not going to interfere with operations. We also have to make sure we're adhering to New York state law, which thankfully is very strong for not-for-profit management. So there's definitely certain things we have to do to maintain our independence and meet all the state and federal requirements that we must follow. So we are charged with oversight. We have a mixed role with strategic planning with the staff. We do that together. There are a lot of activities we do together out of mutual respect and because we want to help and have extra hands to offer, but it's Michelle's call and the different area directors' calls on what they do within their departments. So I would say it's our roles are mutual respect. She's operations and we're oversight of her.
Okay. Is there a special relationship between the CEO and the board chair?
Yeah, every time I've been a chair, I would say yes.
Yeah.
I think most of the time it's just being someone else that the executive can talk to. Many of us have run our organizations and or your department or whatever when you were working. And it's nice to have someone just to talk to listen, to bounce ideas off of. So myself and past chairs here and myself as a chair in other organizations, I think that's a lot of it. It's just being someone to listen, that you can trust each other, you can talk through issues, There's no judgment there. It's just being professionals trying to work through issues and making sure we're not missing anything. That being said, as soon as I know something that she might need to know or vice versa, we have these things called cell phones. You can text immediately. It's amazing. I might be on a ski lift and get a note. That's fine. We want to keep up to date. And then it's my responsibility to share with the board what's going on. Some things involving HR stay at the executive committee level, obviously. We don't know anything about anybody's health here whatsoever. There's a firewall with that. So you don't have to worry about, we don't know anything about any of you, except you're all wonderful. And, but I mean, in terms of special relationship, I think it's communication is the key.
All right, now we come to what I consider to be the most important question that I could possibly ask Chris. And I want you to think carefully before you give your answer. Are you ready?
Maybe.
What do you feel are the advantages of having residents serve on the board?
Well, except for Dick, you know, I was the board member when I got on the board who recommended that we have members of the community on the board. I thought that was incredibly important that all stakeholders get represented. The broad community is already represented because we all live in the broad community. It was critical to have people that I don't know what the term resident director means. We have board members who live in the community. The only difference we have between them is that if you are a board member who gives or receives more than $25,000 of services to an entity over 2 years, New York State deems you to not be an independent director. You can't be an independent board member. It's financial independence. And all that means is if you are a resident of Woodland Pond and a board member, you can't vote on the audit and finance committee. That's it. That's the only difference because you're not independent. Or if, let's say my wife doesn't, but if my wife worked here, I could be a board member, but if she got paid more than 13 and whatever it is, $12,500 a year, I wouldn't be independent because my household either provided or received more than 25 grand over 2 years from the organization. That's the only difference. There's no second class, there's no tiers. I've heard some rumors about that. You're a board member, you just can't be on that committee because New York State says no. If we were in Delaware, it'd be the Wild West, nobody'd care. So that being said, I just feel it's very important to have more voices at the table. Coming from more of a social services background originally, having I also wanted to try to like get a family member on, but we actually naturally kind of have that from the community anyway. So that's represented. But who are all the major constituents we can have on the board? We don't have staff on the board, but we do invite in every meeting different staff to come from different areas, and we rotate through to make sure that we, the board, are hearing directly from staff. Not that we meddle, we don't oversee them, Michelle oversees them, but we want to have open communication and closer relationships with everybody here. I'm sorry, I rambled, but
No, you're not rambling. That was very I to that answer. I know that pertinent to what you were mentioning, I was asked recently, well, Dick, do you make a profit on the 2 books that you've written on Woodland Pond? And the answer is absolutely not. I've never made a penny on either of the 2 books that were written about Woodland Pond. Can you briefly explain? And this is another area that is often confusing to some residents. Can you briefly explain the concept of resident directors having a duty to the Woodland Pond Corporation that can supersede their duty to fellow residents?
yeah, absolutely. But Dick will make a lot of money on the movie rights to his books. Who's going to play Dick in the movie? There is an inherent conflict. Conflicts always exist. They're not bad. They just must be disclosed and handled. I think the most common conflict of interest that might be there or a struggle would be for probably like raising rates. Because, of course, Dick does not want to raise rates, but we would like to, pay our staff a little more because the higher cost of living, health insurance goes up. We do So the finance committee is very heavily involved in like the structure of compensation here at Woodland Pond. And we make extra special efforts to increase the compensation for the lower strata of earners here at Woodland Pond and make every effort we can to not increase the burden of health insurance and other benefits on them. But it takes more money every year to do that. So of course, a conflict would be if I'm a resident and on the board and I'm approving the budget and how we're doing things, that's a conflict. But that's not really an issue. We all know everything costs more. It's just the way it is. Not that we are a not-for-profit, and our biggest expense is staff. And I think everyone here wants our staff to be paid as well as possible because of the wonderful work that they do. I think most of the time there's not a conflict there. It's just open, honest discussion and debate, trying to figure out, are we favoring Woodland Pond today, next year, or 5 or 10 years from now? Most of the things we do are for today and tomorrow, and there's just a balance that's there. But there's been a lot of work in that area. But it's not an issue. You're there to work as a board member. You're a volunteer. It doesn't really come up as an issue. I mean, I really haven't seen anything. Have you?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I mean, there are times, of course, especially in the financial area, where I see that the benefit of Woodland Pond must supersede my own desire to keep my money. So yes, that's an easy distinction. Now comes a brief speech, but with an important question following it. After years of careful consideration, analysis of the current CCRC field, and consultation with various experts, the board has unanimously endorsed and authorized our refurbishment and expansion projects. As our chair, can you briefly explain why these projects are vitally necessary to the continued welfare of Woodland Pond? And can you address the issue of some residents who expressed concern that we are taking on more debt to accomplish these projects?
So that's a very simple question. If I can just stand, because I talk better when I'm walking. Okay. So first of all, if an organization is not growing or enhancing itself in some way, it's decaying. The only thing worse than a college campus that doesn't have construction going on is one that doesn't, right? Because that means they're just letting things go. Generally, an entity like this and any other entity that has people walking around it needs to refurbish itself every 10 years. How long have we been open now? Yeah, I think we're a little overdue. But as a testament to you all behaving well and how good our maintenance and custodial staffs are, everything looks newer than it is, just like all of us. Anyway. So,
don't talk about the car.
So,
No.
So you think we have these big conflict of interest conversations. It's more our jaws dropping when we learn how much it costs to replace the carpet in this place. So we have to be expanding financially. So this organization got off to a very challenging start. It was supposed to open, it opened in the middle of 2008. So everybody who was going to move in, their housing values are going down and they're freaking out. And whenever there's any kind of disturbance or volatility out there in the world, everybody freezes and stops. Like, rabbits stop. So we got off to a start with more debt than an entity like ours should have. We also didn't have some kind of benefactor like 10 other entities like us that had the money to seed us. So we had to borrow to start. So we got out of the gate behind. However, our finances are incredibly strong. We cover everything with cash flow. Everything is very strong. Of course, when you look at our numbers on our 990, for those of you who like to look at finances, we operated a deficit from traditional business accounting. But this is not a traditional business. It's a not-for-profit, and this is how CCRCs run. If you want more information, I'm happy to get into that, but that's probably beyond the scope of boring you to death with that. So we have to look at the expansion, and we have to look at renovating. I know that we do not have whatever 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 million dollars of cash. Dick made his apartment, but we don't have it sitting in our accounts here. So we have to borrow, right? Anybody ever buy a house in their life or do a major renovation on their house, right? How did you pay for that? Most of us. A mortgage, right? A mortgage. None of us have that much money up front, or it's not the best use of our money to hoard all that cash to then put it into a deposit. So we're going to borrow. The way we borrow is debt. We issue bonds because we don't get mortgages. We do bonds because that's, I mean, a mortgage is a bond. It's just big, how we're doing it. So when we look at our finances, and we are so fortunate, we have Ray, who's phenomenal, on our board, who is an investment banker. The gentleman who oversaw the underwriting of Woodland Pond when it was launched, Dean, he's on our board now. That's an advantage to us having Zoom meetings because he lives up here, but not all the time. The person who undersaw our underwriting is on our board. So we have a lot of great resources available to us. So when we looked at everything, we have this physical plan. We have all the current staff needed to run the place. We have an executive director and a finance team and the maintenance staff and all these people. So we have this existing fixed cost of the current footprint. So one thing we can do to make your lives better and have better cash flow is to borrow, to expand the number of people who can enjoy the services here, to then spread, this is for your benefit, spread the cost that you pay to run what we have over more people. By borrowing and increasing our short-term costs, we're going to decrease our long-term costs by spreading it over more people. Never mind, our mission is to serve our community, and our wait lists are kind of immoral here. I mean, look at the wait lists are insanely long. I have a lot of clients and friends and parents of friends who'd love to move in here, and maybe their grandkids can get in with the wait list to wait, right? I mean, it's a concern. Our mission is to serve our community. Are we serving our community if we keep it just this big? Probably not. So anyway, so for financial health, we will be more healthy by borrowing and expanding a bit to spread the cost over more people. And when it comes to, does anybody ever buy milk? Ever? What is cheaper, 1 gallon or 3 quarts individually bought? A gallon. So we're going to borrow in this next phase. Let's borrow a little bigger, do a little expansion, and get that money to get the refurbishment done with cheaper money. And it all works out cheaper that way. And it's easier to work in bigger chunks than little chunks. Do you build a house a wall at a time, or you borrow and add the whole room on that you want for the great room? So it is cheaper to do it the way we're doing it. It's more financially responsible. Department of Finance for the state has to look over everything that we do. The underwriters look over everything we do. And when I talked about we get outside expertise, we have excellent best-in-class outside experts for our legal, for our accounting, and for our consultants with like Ziegler and some other entities that are helping us with the modeling everything. I'm sure you've all met Michelle, right? I think meticulous might be a word that's good for her. Same with Christy. Maybe a little OCD and anal. That's okay. We want that in accounting people, right? Our budget here isn't this annual thing that's like a wish. Every month, we go out 120 months with a monthly adjusted based on all of our, however many, 18 years of experience here. So we have a very refined budget. So we're watching everything, and everything that we're doing with any kind of expansion, refurbishment, and borrowing gets plugged into that with worst case numbers and worst case scenarios to make sure it's going to work. Because we can't do anything to hurt you and this entity in the future. So we're approaching it very, very carefully. And after we've tried every other way, we've brainstormed, we've tabletopped, debated, the best way we can come up with all of our outside experts and our internal, all of our debating for the past 10 years is to borrow, to expand a bit, to make things healthier. So hopefully that helps a little bit. I'm happy to explain more with other questions.
Okay, you can sit down now. Okay. Since the COVID epidemic, Chris, nearly all of our board meetings have been via Zoom and not in person. Do you see advantages and disadvantages to this?
Yes. We can have board members from further afar. We can have board
Dean is
members.
an yeah.
Yeah, Dean's a
yeah.
great example.
Yeah.
We can also have board members who might be traveling for work or just away that can participate. So participation is up. I mean, we're 99.999% attendance. And that wasn't the case before when we were only in person. People would call in and it didn't work well. The disadvantage we try to overcome. We meet in person when we can. We have a big annual retreat every year. Committees often meet in person. Most of us now are used to working via Zoom. So it's kind of the way you do things now, a hybrid of meeting in person and meeting online. And it's very easy to jump into a meeting for 10 minutes, address an issue and be done instead of everybody driving here for 10 minutes. And so there's more frequent communication. And we do have meaningful time together in person also.
Good. When the Board of Woodland Pond first became a fully independent entity back in 2016 with the dissolution of Health Alliance, it ruled that while its board meetings would not be open to the public, its official minutes would be available in the Woodland Pond Library. Can you explain why this decision was made for closed meetings?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't participate in a board where the debates and conversation would be in public for everybody to see, and that you have to be guarded with what you say. You know, otherwise it becomes a PTA meeting or a planning board meeting or like a town board meeting where, you know, it's a different type of communication. If you have the board in a closed room, debating things, making sure we're not missing anything, feeling comfortable to perhaps misspeak or go down an avenue that's, I don't know, odd in some way, but it leads to a better outcome. I think that's critically important to have that ability to speak freely. And then we don't provide a transcript. That's overkill and defeats the purpose. I mean, I was on a board where we were debating a new member coming in, and myself and a few other people had significant concerns about the individual that they were voting onto the board because we felt strongly this person had such an agenda that he wanted the mailing list of the organization to market his business. And in there was Chris Drouin said this and Dr. So-and-so said that. But the board voted the person on, and there I am in the next meeting in the minutes how I was vocal against this person. Of course, the person did that and ended up getting kicked off the board, but it definitely didn't help to have that level of detail in the board minutes. You know, and would you want all of your transcripts of your best friends debating things that are sensitive out there, or do you just want the outcome of what we decided and why? I feel it's very reasonable, but again, I wouldn't participate in a board where the whole thing's videotaped or whatnot like that. You can't feel comfortable talking.
Yeah, and I certainly support that from my own many years of experience on boards. What are some of the qualities of the current board that you feel make it effective?
I think there's a great deal of respect. There's a lot of experience. I think everybody's had major roles on other boards before, which definitely helps. People know how to behave. And everyone does their work. Everyone is present. And, you know, we trust each other. We might question to understand what a committee was discussing and debating, but it isn't let's rehash this whole thing because I don't believe that the 10 hours this committee put into that was really, you know, good enough. So there's a lot of respect and mutual work there. And we're all here for the strategic oversight of the organization. There's no agendas for the people's own, you know, benefit, which I really appreciate.
In the 9 years of your tenure on the board, Chris, which covers all of the years of our independence, what changes have you observed in Woodland Pond that just come immediately to mind?
One of the reasons I did join the board was because it did become an independent entity. I wasn't going to sit in a board meeting where we were just a rubber stamp for a larger entity. So it was very exciting to be part of building the new bylaws for this organization. To get this organization, I mean, basically it was a startup because we were started by somebody else, but now we had to become our own. And that was a really exciting thing to be part of. I think continuous improvement is probably one of the core tenets of this entity from what I've seen, from what all of you do for the organization, what the staff does, the physical plant, our strategic planning. That's an ongoing process. Sometimes we pick it up and put it down, but It's been a very, I've seen the outcome and the fruit born, which has been very exciting. As one of my turns as chair of the finance committee, we did a lot of work on, with Michelle did it all really. We just said, hey, can we align the strategic plan with the budget, or I'm sorry, the budget's reporting with the strategic plan. So we have dashboards of what are the things important we're supposed to be measuring, and let's make sure everything's aligned in that way to make it easy for board members, most of which are not finance experts. I'm not a corporate finance expert by any means, to understand that information so we can own it and make better decisions. So I was kind of interested in the pedagogy of relaying the information of finance to a board of prudent, normal people that can make good decisions on it. We also did a big task, and you were there with that, which was, we have our the deposits that you put in, and we used to operate because we needed to, with the way we were in the beginning, of larger deposits that were refundable, because this entity before we came here on the board needed more cash up front to overcome the higher debt load we had in the beginning. But carefully, with close work with our finance team, with Michelle and Christy, we've reversed it, so we now have the lower entrance fees with little or no refunds for newer people coming in. So we don't have this large outlay of money in the future when refunds would go out to people. So we've been doing a lot of things. That's that debate between good for Woodland Pond today and good for Woodland Pond tomorrow. We operated a little tighter on cash to not have to lay out as much in the future. And we are seeing dividends, and we'll continue to see better financial health with the organization. And that also required us working with our actuaries and the Department of Finance and Department of Health to get all that approved, so that everybody's making sure we're doing things that would be financially stable. It's a bowling alley. There's gutters on each side, and we have to stay down the middle to make sure we're doing it right. So that was kind of a big thing that's really helped financially and put us in the position of stronger cash flow to afford the expansion and servicing the debt to get to that next tier of much better operating margins, much healthier finances for the entity in a few years.
Okay, I'm abiding by the unwritten rule that all meetings at Woodland Pond should not last longer than an hour. But I'm saying that we started, from my recollection, at about 10 minutes after the hour. So we still have a good 15 minutes in which we could answer any questions that might come from the audience.
Yes, Jill?
This is just a suggestion. When you were talking about the Zoom meetings and not being together, I served on a CCRC board. We went Zoom during the pandemic and reopened to in-person meetings following, I think it was like mid-2021. And I was on the board when I moved here. I submitted my resignation to the president, and he said, "Oh, no, you can stay on the board. You can stay on the board and come in by Zoom." So for 2 years, I attended all the board meetings by Zoom. And in one of them, I was in Austria. So, and I really found the in-person meetings much, much, much more satisfactory than the ones on Zoom. So I'm just suggesting that maybe you want to look at that, and you would still be able to bring this dean in by Zoom and still have an in-person session with everybody else. And when somebody's traveling, even if they're in China, they can probably use Zoom.
I do agree with that, but when you have a few people not there via Zoom, it's not kind of fair to them in a way. So we just made the decision we're on or we're off Zoom, and based on the makeup of the board, some of the board members need to be away, but we do get together in person pretty frequently.
Are you referring to that?
So, but I get it. It's a challenge. Gotcha.
Let's see. We've only been Zooming religiously for the last, is it 3.5 years now? About 3.5 years, because I mean, in all the previous years that I served on the board, it was primarily all in-person meetings. And from my perspective, I think it really, really depends on the composition of the board and the people who are on it. Because I can look back to other times on the board where I think it would have been not not great to have Zoom meetings, whereas with these current members of the board, they are so productive and so dynamic, and their personalities blend so well that it still becomes a very vibrant experience, even in a Zoom connection.
Well, a lot of work is done at the committee level. So for expansion, I mean, we're basically meeting weekly with a lot of other meetings for that. So there's a really strong relationship developed, and we do, like, new members, we do meet with in person. They come, we have lunch, so we try to do as much in person as possible, but a lot of board business is handled in the committees, and we're coming together to, like, quick discussion. We do some votes via email also, because here's the rationale. We've been talking about this now for 2 years. Now it's time for the decision. This is the way it's going to go. We need the board vote. Boom, it's taken care of. We don't have to wait for the next meeting. So we're pretty hybrid across the board, but it has its pluses and minuses. So,
Chris, I have a question.
please.
What's your opinion about the importance of knowing what goes on here? I wouldn't say day to day, but I mean, there is all these committees, which, I mean, one of the things that attracted me and my wife here is that there was such an impressive activity by the people that are living here, not just administration running things.
Yeah. Oh, it's great that there's such a vibrant community. We have the Residents Council comes, like Dave Smith he comes in and provides reports, read all the reports from the committees. We all get and read all the newsletters, everything that comes out. We're looking at, watching the videos. So we're very, very involved. I think it's great, all the things that happen here.
A question about succession, major the upper staff here.
Mhm.
Is there a succession plan? And
Yeah, we pray, and we tell Michelle she's not allowed to leave. Yes, we have always been heavily discussing succession. We have our what is it, the designated survivor. I mean, literally, we know what staff will step into what roles. All division heads are cross-trained. Michelle has no responsibilities, that she's the only person that takes care of that. So we have a lot of cross-training so people can step into. There's nothing Michelle does that nobody else can do here. That's a big thing we've worked on. We're not at the size where we can have an associate director that would step into her role. And often at most places, the associate director is not the CEO level person anyway. So we would be going out. If Michelle were to change her cosmic address or get hit by a pickle truck walking across Main Street, we do have financial reserves in place with key person life insurance. So we would have money coming in to handle a search, hire a replacement, pay staff extra to step up into a role, to be able to provide a lot of comfort to the staff that we are financially stable. We're not going to knock Michelle off to make money. It's nothing like that. But we have all that kind of planning in place. I will say, so Kristen, who's on the board with us, she ran a lot of the corporate risk compliance for Sloan Kittery Hospital System. I, as a certified exit planning advisor with part of my financial planning practice, the first stop on the train when we're helping business owners grow their business is de-risking the entity. A couple weeks ago, Kristen and I facilitated a day-long workshop off-site with all the division heads here to define and analyze the risk in all of their departments. And as a team, all of us work together to help each other de-risk, with one big part of that being succession, so that we can determine what every entity needs and what each division needs and who can step up to fill the role. And then from a human resources standpoint, it would be a sensitive conversation, of course, but do the people you have right now, can some of them step up in time, or do we need to be considering outside? But we have a playbook. If Michelle were to change her cosmic address tomorrow, we have a playbook. We open. We know who to call. We know the headhunters. We know everybody we're going to talk to, all the division heads, and who'd step into her role here. So it's a very big concern.
Thank you, Chris. You talked about before about the debt financing, and you mentioned that that's all CCRCs. Can you talk a little? Well, I think you did say that, but is it all?
Almost all.
Almost all. Is it all the not-for-profits, or many of us are a little concerned by the word debt financing, and we hear about the expansion's going to cost $23 million and it's going to put Woodland Pond in debt for $23 million. It's a lot of faith that we have in all of you to handle this, but could you talk a little bit more about why CCRCs use this model?
Well, unfortunately, a large network of CCRCs didn't open us with $1 billion in reserves. We were debt financed from the beginning. There was seed money from Kingston Hospital at the time. We got up and running, and they got bought by Westchester, who said, "Yeah, we don't want to be in this business," which is a fine decision. So it's just that with the model, you have people buying in. There's money that we can. Say somebody buys in for $400,000 or puts a deposit in for $400,000, and that's not refundable. That $400,000 we cannot count as income right now. We count that as income over their lifespan. So even though we have the money from GAAP, general acceptable accounting principles, we can't count it as income. So black and white on paper for our 990, which is the tax return for the entity, we can't count all that income. We have the money to use, but we can't count it. So it looks bad, but it isn't. From a cash flow perspective, we are incredibly healthy, very, very positive cash flow. This place is continually updated. You don't probably see it, but a lot of things that most places borrow or do in chunks, we're just continually doing, not by borrowing, but out of cash flow. It's just when we look at the things we want to do to make this place as strong as possible, as nice of a place to live as quickly as possible, to accelerate the enhancement of this facility. If we did it $1 million at a time, it'd take us 10 years. We go borrow, we can have it all done, and we can have $10 million or $20 million of enhancements done in 2 years or less, or whatever the number. Don't hold me to that. We have zoning, planning, whatever. But it's like we want to get it to you as quick. So who cares if we borrow and pay it over 10 or save for 10 and do it? I think I'd rather have it now. Wouldn't you? Right? I mean, that's a common thing. You had another question in there, though. Okay. In terms of borrowing 20 or 30 or what, what's this place worth? If I said, hey, my house is worth something, I'm going to borrow 20% of the value to add in a garage, and my mom's moving in, so I'm going to put in a mother-daughter. If I said I'm borrowing 20% of the value of my house to enhance it, to get it where it needs to be, put a new roof on it, wouldn't that be prudent? So the numbers are huge, but this place is huge. You don't even want to see what our insurance bill for this place is for fire insurance. They're big, big, big numbers, but when you put it in percentages, if you're spending 2% of your budget for your house on homeowners insurance, that's reasonable. And if I told you, our bills could be $1 million for insurance, oh my God. Well, it's like 2%, same as your house. Oh, okay. The numbers are just bigger, but you gotta look at the percentages to not freak yourself out. Well, that's how the Department of Finance requires us to do it, because the money somebody gives us technically isn't all ours until we've. It's kind of like unearned earnings. If somebody gives you a deposit for work and you didn't do it all yet, you can't really count it as your income. It's there, but you can't use it. It's like an escrow. So we have all this money in escrow that we can use it with certain reserves, which we totally have in place, but we can't recognize it in black and white on our tax return. How many people ran their own business before? Or know people? Yeah. You had your real numbers and you had the tax numbers. Then you had the numbers you'd show the bank. Except this is all legal.
Explain what that is and why it's.
Why ours is so strong, or?
I think it's.
It is strong, yeah. Days cash on hand. It's important to have a reserve, emergency fund, your own budget in your house, home, days cash on hand. How many months of bill money do you keep? financial experts say, whatever. I guess I'm one of them, so I shouldn't make fun of myself. It's important to us because we have covenants, we have requirements in our bonds from our bank, our lenders, the bondholders. There's certain covenants we need to achieve. So there's certain measurements, but they happen at different times of the year. So I'm just going to make up days here because I do not have it memorized. Say like December 1st, we need to show that we have 150 days cash on hand. So boom, we have 150 days cash on hand. On April something, we need to have a debt to income ratio of X. So we might move days of cash on hand out, pay down our line of credit to make sure we're really solid for that measurement. It's just different measurements, and it's important because the bondholders make it important.
I think by implication, you have already answered this question, but I'll make it an explicit question. What do you say to a resident who says, I'm probably not going to be here in 5 years, 10 years, whatever, some time period. Why should I care what you're planning to do for the future?
Okay. Do you want a politically correct answer, or do you want what the first thing that comes in the back of my head? The first thing that comes in the back of my head is I might not be here to see it. Nobody knows. Nobody knows.
Yeah. Well,
I
I understand that on the eve of D-Day, some general assembled the troops and said, look to your left, look to your right. At the end of the day, one of you will be dead. So yes, of course. But
the second part of it,
carry on.
Yeah, the second part of it is pay it forward. Everything here, okay, this is my personal belief. I'm not speaking on behalf of the board. I believe that anything that goes wrong in my life is my fault. That's the good news and the bad news. Bad news is it's my fault. Good news, if it's my fault, I can fix it. I can work on it. I can try to make a change. Anything good that happened to me is because of fortunate things other people have done for me. I believe we all stand on the shoulders of the people who cared about us, or maybe we didn't even know that just did good in the world. So you are enjoying things here today because people before did good things to make this happen. You can do good things. You might enjoy it. You might not. That's the human condition. I believe if we all help each other, if we all do better, we'll all do better. We may not be here to see it. I think it's good. But in terms of providing more to this entity that might not happen, I mean, it's going to come. What can we do to accelerate it? My focus is accelerating what we're going to be doing anyway. How do we get it done more quickly? If that makes sense.
How will the expansion and the debt borrowing affect our monthlies?
It won't. Well, in the long run, it should make it. If we have more, if the current cost of running the place is spread across more people, that lessens. It makes us stronger. We won't potentially, hopefully, need to increase as much in the future as we have higher costs of things. If more people are paying in, it also increases our days cash on hand, our financial position, makes the ability to do enhancements down the road without borrowing much more likely because we'll have more cash and more cash flow. We'll have more cash reserves and more cash flow. And then at some point, we'll have a nice recession and we can refinance at a lower rate, which we have done several times. When did we do it the last time? Like 4 or 5 years ago, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, we did it, and we basically saved $1 million a year in interest. So that pays for a lot of things.
I knew the answer, but the people who are listening didn't. So thank you.
Okay. Did I answer it okay? Or okay. So other questions, please. I know you're not shy. Anything I need, I don't care. Yeah, Jill. I hope I make it long enough. Oh, I'm sorry. I hope I live that long. But yeah, I think this is great. It's a cool thing. I wish my mother was in a position where she could potentially enjoy it here. She probably isn't financially. My dad looks at it. Of course, maybe he's better in South Carolina than right here bugging us, but we'll see. So yeah, I think this is great. My big problem is that New York State is so challenging to operate. It's so hard to open other ones. So which also, we're not serving our community well. This is a not-for-profit. We should be providing this level of, I hope you like it here, but to me, this is very high quality. We want this quality of care. Everyone should be able to have this. And if we can find some ways to offer something similar to this at a lower price point for folks who haven't been able to plan as well or do as well in their lives, I think that'd be wonderful. There are some hybrid models in other states, but New York State's been sitting on them for 10 years. So one concept is like a woodland pond at home. Someone could pay a membership fee here, but stay in their home because they're not ready to live here yet, but they can get the services here and our staff would know them and we'd have a relationship. They could come enjoy things here. Obviously, we need to maybe expand a little more to handle that, but we would be able to provide more community and more relationships and more help to people in the community, which I think fulfills our mission. But New York State's just not moving on any of it, even though many people at the state level want to see that happen for their family and themselves down the road. So it's exciting, though, to offer different levels of care and options to people. It's very exciting.
I would share with my fellow residents, as someone who is not an expert in finance, I was pampered during my professional life where I had multi-million-dollar budgets, but I would just determine what the general categories were, and then the experts would take over and do all the nitty-gritty work. But always look at what our residency rate is and what the number of people waiting in line to join the community. That for me is the thing that it's an ongoing focus that I never vary from in terms of determining the most superficially the health of Woodland Pond. And that really works for me. I want to thank Chris. I think you've gotten a glimpse of what a dynamic and dedicated board chair person he is. And I would say to you, my fellow residents, we have, as marvelous as he is, we have 10 others like him on the board. And that's why it makes it such an extraordinary pleasure. During my professional life, I served on 7 different boards. I have never served on a board as productive, as dedicated, as dynamic, and as pleasant as this Woodland Pond board is. So I thank you, Chris. I thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you. Hopefully we entertained you.